Welcome to PinkPoodleVenice at Daniela's Dogs. Today we're going to be talking about collars and collar sizes. A lot of people kind of aren't sure how to wear a collar properly. Well, their dogs don't anyway. So what is quite common is for a dog to have a collar on how Venice is wearing hers now. And if you can see, this is quite loose. There's lots of room there and people feel quite comfortable that their dogs aren't going to be choked like this. Now, regardless of what size your collar is, if a dog's going to really pull and tug on a lead, this collar is going to pull on the throat anyway. If your dog's a puller and a tugger, when you're at the other end of this lead pulling, this collar will go from this to this. If your dog walks exceptionally well on the lead, it will stay quite loose. However, regardless of whether your dog's good or bad on the lead, what your dog can do with this is completely slip it and get it out if it wants to. If it really wants to, your dog can do that within seconds. I've often seen people standing there with an empty lead and then they realise their dog's not actually on the end of the collar. A lot of people have got this misconception that when the dog's hair is long and it grows, because it's quite thick, they have a bigger collar size on. What you really should be doing in an ideal world is having a collar quite tight around the neck. Regardless of what's going on around the fur, break under the fur, it should always be the same size. It shouldn't change size depending on the haircut. In an ideal world, a collar should be as tight as this. And I'm talking about walking collars here. I'm not talking about house collars. House collars can be looser. Ones, if you wear a house collar, if your dog wears a house collar that you like to grab onto something if the doorbell rings or something, they can be much looser. But for a walking collar, you want to make sure that no matter what happens, this dog is not slipping that lead. Tighten it as much as you can, and you should be able to just get your finger under there and slide it, but not really do too much else. You could take that to the next one if you have a really disobedient dog that pulls and has problems with cats or other dogs. You can take that as tight as that, that's not choking, and as long as you can still slide your finger down there like this, quite easily, but still kind of a little bit tight, but quite easily. This is actually a perfect size for a dog that's uncontrollable on the lead, and this is how we walk greyhounds, because greyhounds can easily slip the collars. So we're talking kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 notches away from what the average person has their collar. Now this should be this size regardless of whether Venice grows a big bushy coat or not. You need to get under the actual fur. So that's something to think about. If you feel it's going to choke your dog, or your dog has throat problems, you can go for a thicker type collar. There's different sizes and shapes of greyhound collars which put a thicker band onto that area as opposed to a standard thin band. If your dog doesn't walk well on a collar at all and you want to go for a harness, that's fine. But just remember, when you're fitting your harness, again, a lot of people have harnesses look too loose on a dog, and we'll get this the right way round in a minute. Venice is looking at me like I'm crazy, but even Venice knows how to get one of these on quite quickly. Anyone that knows me well knows I fiddle around with harnesses. With your harness, make sure you need to shop in person for harnesses and collars. Make sure it's quite a nice tight fit. You don't want your dog to have too much play on the chest area, because again, you'll be surprised, your dog will be able to slip a harness when it's on loose quite quickly and come out of it. What you want to make sure as well is, although it's tight, it needs to be made so there's no chafing going on between the fabric and that delicate area of that under armpit. Harnesses are more suitable for wider breed dogs, more sort of sturdy, kind of staffy type dogs. You can use them on slender dogs like Venice, poodles, schnauzers, shih tzus, this kind of thing. But just make sure that you're buying everything in person rather than the internet. It's not really brand specific, it's dog size specific. It's not breed specific. It's your dog as an individual, and you'll have different needs. There's no rule book on this. There's no right or wrong thing to do. This is just a very handy tip based on what people have asked me.